All right, so this is section 9.5, and we are going to be factoring quadratics. So that's what these are called, is x squared plus bx plus c. It's called a quadratic. So we learned last week how to factor out a monomial. We tested over that last week. And now we are going over how to factor into two binomials, okay? So here we have, we're gonna kind of skip some stuff here, but this is going to factor, so this is called a quadratic right here. This is a trinomial, and this is going to factor out to be two binomials. So two sets of parentheses is how we're gonna factor this. Okay, so here's your first example of this with actual numbers. So x squared plus 5x plus 6, this is a trinomial. This factors out to be x plus 3 times x plus 2. And what have we been doing with two binomials so far? What have we done with those? We have FOILed them. So if I were to FOIL this, it would end up equaling this trinomial right here, if I were to FOIL that out. So factoring is the opposite of FOILing, okay? So notice I'm going to point out a few things. 3 times 2 equals 6, which is our term, it's called our C term. So this is A, B, and C. Okay, so I'm going to point out one more thing. 3 plus 2 is 5, which is our B term. So all these numbers kind of go together, and it'll make more sense, hopefully, after I show you how to do this. Okay. So what I want you to write down under sign patterns, if you have that typed up, if you have it typed on your outline, you can put this kind of in the middle if you want, but I want you to write down this sign chart on the back of the board. So this sign chart is something you're going to refer to constantly, and I'll write it up here too. And you will probably, memorize this after a bit. So it's back there. Oh, sorry. And you can write it from back there, or I'll write it up here. So what this means is, I'll kind of explain more about what it means. But it means if you have your first set of signs in your trinomial are on the left, and then your set of signs that will be in your two binomials is on the right. So if you start out with plus plus, your binomials are going to be plus plus. Okay, so if it's minus minus, then it is minus plus. Okay, so we're going to refer to this sign chart, and this is going to be kind of our guiding factor for how to factor. So there are other methods of factoring. If you don't understand this sign chart method, feel free to YouTube other methods. There's tons of different ways of doing it, but in my years of teaching, this has been the least confusing, most effective way of teaching factoring. This is also how your high school teachers are going to pretty well remind you of how to factor, is using the sign chart. But like I said, if you don't understand this method after a few days, then feel free to YouTube, Khan Academy, whatever you want to look at, and look at different methods of factoring. I'm just not going to teach the class entirely any other way but this, okay? So we're going to refer to this. So on the left-hand column is what signs are in the trinomial to start with. On the right-hand column is what signs you're going to put in your two binomials. Okay, so it's like a starting point on how to factor. So for your first problem, so it's x squared plus 3x plus 2. So looking at your trinomial, your signs are plus plus. So if you look at your chart, that means our binomial is going to be plus plus. So I'm going to go ahead and do two sets of parentheses and leave myself enough room to write. And I'm going to put plus plus, because I know that my signs inside the parentheses are going to equal plus plus. Okay, so the next part is pretty simple. I just need to take my A term, so this is A, B, C, and I am going to break apart my A term. So it's x squared, which means it equals x times x. So I'm gonna take and put x and x here. Yes.
What if that's an odd number?
Like x to the third?
Yeah.
We would factor it a whole different way. So this is only gonna work with a square. Okay. So then my next part that I have to go through is I have to think of multiples of the last term that add up to be the middle. So multiples of 2 that add up to be 3.
1.5.
Like what together equals 2? What times what? 1 times
2.
2, right? So we don't have any other choices because 2 is a prime number. It's 1 times 2, that's it. So does 1 times 2, does 1 and 2 equal 3? 1 plus 2?
Yes.
Yes, so that would have to be the right answer. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Okay, so here's how you can test this, a shorter way than factoring. You could always factor this back out and that would test it, or you can do this. You can do inside times inside, so that would be a positive 1x, and then outside times outside, and that would be a positive 2x. If you add those up, you get a positive 3x, which is what's in the center right here. So that tells me that you got it right. Now you're eventually going to get really good at this, hopefully, to where you could do this part in your head, like check it in your head really quick and not have to write anything down. Like write down your checking process, okay? Also, it isn't really super necessary to check if both signs are addition. It really gets important to check when you have different signs. So like when you have 1 plus, 1 minus, then checking is super important. But if both signs are plus or both signs are minus, checking isn't that necessary because you know it should work out to be right. Okay, so let's try the next one. So factor x squared plus 11x plus 18. So look at your signs. You have plus plus. So my 2 parentheses, I'm going to go ahead and put a plus plus. And then I have x squared at the beginning, so I'm going to break that apart and have x and x. Okay, so now I'm looking at factors of 18 that add up to be 11. So if I run through factors of 18, like 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6, which group adds to be 11? 2 times 9. And it doesn't matter which order I place them in because they're both positive signs. So I can put 2 and 9 or 9 and 2, and that would equal 11. So if I go to test this again, I would have a positive 2x. And on the outsides, I'd have a positive 9x, which would add up to be the positive 11x. Okay, next one. So here we don't have an x, but it's still the same process. So plus plus, I put plus plus in my parentheses. I split apart my a's, so I'm going to have a and a. And then I'm looking at factors of 10 that are going to add to be 7. 2 and 5, or 5 and 2. So again, they're both plus plus, so I could put either 5, 2 or 2, 5, and it doesn't matter which way. Okay, I want you to try the next 2. So the one with t squared and then the one with x squared, 8 and 12. So try the next 2, and then we'll move on to other signs. Okay, so for this one, I have my two signs as plus plus. And what did you guys get as your factors of 14 that add up to be 9? I think I heard 7 and 2, hopefully. Like 1 and 14 would be 15, so we know that doesn't work. Our other choice is 7 and 2. Okay, the next one, again, I have plus plus. And 12 has a lot more choices, like 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. What'd you guys pick that adds up to 8? 2, and 6, or you could put 6 and 2, either way. Okay, so now we're gonna do something with different signs. So minus plus, if you look at your chart, equals minus minus. So this one is still a little bit easier because we have the same sign for both of them. So I'm gonna break apart the ends. And then I need factors of 8 that are still gonna add up to be the middle number because they're both the same sign. So like, I'm gonna add them together, they're not gonna take away from each other because they're both negatives. So factors of 8 that add up to be 6. 2 and 4. So do you guys see what I mean? They both still have to add up to be the middle number because they're both negatives. So like -2 plus -4 gets you a -6 in the middle. Okay. So let's see. The next one will be more difficult. So here we have plus minus. So on your chart, that equals a plus minus. So this one you have to approach a little bit differently. So the first step still is to break apart your first term. So you have y and y. And then the next step is to find factors of 15 that have a difference of 2, or that are 2 numbers away from each other. So what I mean by 2 numbers away from each other, like 8 and 10 are 2 numbers away from each other. That would equal 80, but okay, so I heard 5 and 3. So our choices are 1 and 15. Those are 14 away from each other, so that's not gonna work. Or 5 and 3, and those are 2 away from each other. So now, so we chose 5 times 3. So here's what you have to do next.
Because
What now?
the 5 has to go in the plus one because the minus.
Correct. You have to look at it like, I'm trying to get a positive number in the middle. So I would want to take positive 5 minus 3, not the other way around, not -5 plus 3. Okay, so I'm going to do a positive 5 minus 3. Now, when you have different signs, I strongly encourage you to check them. So let's check this one. So positive 5 times y would give me a positive 5y. And then -3 times y would give me a -3y. If I put those together, I still get a positive 2y, which is what I'm trying to get. That's my middle term, which is the whole goal. So when you have different signs, I strongly encourage you to check your factors. It would be very helpful. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Minus plus is minus minus. So what are we trying to get in the middle? Are we adding or having a difference? We are adding to get the middle number. So factors of 3 that add up to be 4. 1 and 3. Or 3 and 1. Okay, so I want you guys to do the next one, minus plus. Okay, so what did you get? So your signs are minus, minus. And what'd you get for your factors? 2 and 6, or 6 and 2. Okay. Next one, plus, minus is gonna equal plus, minus. So I'm looking for factors of 20 that have a difference of 1, that are 1 apart from each other.
Yeah, sorry.
5 and 4. So 1 and 20 wouldn't work, that's 19. 2 and 10 would be 8, so we're looking at 5 and 4. Now, I'm trying to get a positive number in the middle, so my biggest number should be positive. So I need a positive 5 and a negative 4. And then I'm gonna test this because I have different signs, so that would be a positive 5x, and then the outsides would multiply to be a negative 4x, which would give me a positive 1x, which is what I have in the middle. Okay, I want you guys to try the next one with 6 and 16. Okay, so we're looking for factors of 16 that have a difference of 6. 8 and 2, and you're trying to get a positive 6. So where does the 8 need to go? With the positive, yep. And then if I were to check this, it would be positive 8x minus 2x, which would give us 6x, which is right. Okay, the next one looks a little different. It says solve, which means we're actually gonna calculate the answer for x. So before I factor anything, the rule is that everything has to be one side, 0 on the other. So the first thing I need to do is subtract 18 over. So then I'm going to have x squared plus 3x minus 18 equals 0. So now I can factor, but I cannot factor until everything's on one side. So my signs are plus, minus. So I'm gonna write my signs as plus, minus. And then I have x, and it's still equal to 0. And then I'm looking for factors of 18 that have a difference of 3. 6 and 3. Which one am I going to make positive? 6. Okay, so this is just like what you were working with before. What am I gonna do next? Put each one equal to 0. So x plus 6 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So what would x equal here? Negative 6, and here x would equal positive 3. Okay, so I want you to try that last one. So first thing you have to do is get everything on one side. Okay, so minus plus is minus minus. And then factors of 21 that add up to be 10. 3 and 7. Do you guys see how important knowing multiplication facts are? Even at this age. So then I am going to solve, and what does x equal? X equals 3, x equals 7. So knowing those multiplication facts is definitely very helpful with all of this. Okay, so your assignment is a textbook page, and I'll pass that out.